she ran onto the field. She got a standing ovation from all the parents, the student section. Most of the Harbor Springs kids stood up and were clapping. Girls out on the field were clapping. And I turned and looked at her mother, who was up in the stands, and she was crying. And she was pointing down at me. And the next day she came into the clinic, the mother, and broke down and started crying and said, "Thank you for giving my kid back to me."
Wow.
That's why we do what we do as chiropractors.
Wow, what an awesome intro there, Jake. Eric, that's pressure. Here's our last guest. And he had Jake crying and he had me crying. So
you can hear me sniffling in the background.
You better be on your A game because he killed it.
Yeah. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry, Snoop.
We got Snoop Dogg here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ARPneuro Q&A show. And we got a good one today because we have Eric Eccles. We're going to get to him in a bit. But first, we have the infamous Matt Dell, or Snoop Dogg in this particular case. And he's going to go through briefly once we get through this. 1 second. And we're going to launch this. We're probably not going to be able to get to the online here, Matt, just FYI.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, but we'll get started here.
Already, Jake, I'm impressed. On our first Q&A show, it took us about 7 minutes just to even be able to get to get the Zoom working. So I think we're learning, Eric. So this is going to be fun. Welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody that's joined tonight. And what I wanted to do is kind of just give everybody a little background on who we are, and if you don't know about ARPneuro, I'd like to just share a little bit about it. So you can go to the next slide. So the technology that you're going to learn about tonight has been around for about 20 years, and it's had a tremendous success rate helping people with all kinds of different conditions, and we'll talk a little about that on a couple slides. The company that developed this is a company out of Minnesota, a company called ARPwave. And they spent a majority of their time and energy really working with professional athletes, professional teams. And the reason, and for those of you that are sports fans like myself, I was always amazed at how quickly these professional athletes were able to recover from injuries, ACL surgeries. And now I understand why. It's because of the ARP technology. It's got a 60 to 70, 80% faster recovery than traditional chiropractor and physical therapy. And Eric's going to share with us a little bit about some of the success that he's had introducing the PRS and the ARPneuro into his practice. You can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, if you've heard about this, you've probably heard it through some of the professional athletes. If you haven't had a chance, the link there below is we've started compiling some great videos on our website. So just go to Athletes Using ARP, and tremendous videos. There's one with even a commercial, Chase Young, second-round pick of the Commanders. He blew out his ACL, and Chipotle actually put together a commercial on his comeback. And if you watch that video, you'll see the ARP treatment that he used. A couple other great videos, but we're going to continue to try to add to that library so you get a better understanding of who's using this from a professional perspective. You can go to the next slide. Personally, so as how we discovered this, my old business partner, gentleman by the name of Chip Turner, he had a serious wrist injury, went to every specialist around the country, could not get it fixed. Finally, the president of NBC suggested that he goes to this chiropractor that has the technology called ARP in his office in Chicago. And obviously he was an avid golfer and would do anything to get back. Went there. After 3 sessions, the pain went away. After 6 sessions, he was swinging a golf club, and he could not believe that this, after everything that he tried, that this was successful. And he asked the doctor, how is this not everywhere? And the doctor said, because the company that developed the technology focused a majority of their attention on professional athletes. So Chip set up a call with the company, and now has exclusive distribution rights in the United States. And really, it's almost his philanthropy to try to get this technology to help as many college athletes, high school athletes, weekend warriors, senior citizens, anybody that's trying to get back in the game. I personally had experience with this. This picture here, that's my son who just graduated from Iowa. This was his senior year in high school. And about the fourth game of the season, he broke his tibia fibula. That's the x-ray there. And they put a rod between his knee and his ankle. And he was an avid basketball player, starting point guard. And Chip suggested, hey, you should have him do this 20 treatments of ARP, and I guarantee he'll play basketball. And I said, absolutely no way is that going to happen. But my son said, yeah, he'll give it a shot. We were actually driving an hour, to and from this clinic. He did 20 treatments, and actually that's actually him there playing the last 5 games of the season, including the playoffs. As a parent, scared the hell out of me, just because to watch your son run around a court, with a rod in his leg. There is no way he could have done that without the treatment of ARP, because he would have had so much neuropathy in his leg, and this absolutely helps. So I personally experienced it and saw it firsthand. You can go to the next slide. So the other thing that's you may not know, Logan University, they graduate about 400 doctors annually. They had a gentleman, a VP of Innovation and Technology, who's going to be joining us on a Q&A, I believe. Jake, is it next Thursday?
Next Thursday, I believe, yes.
Next Thursday. And he had a team. They did a complete deep dive into the technology, and they were blown away. So Jake is actually physically in St. Louis. They just launched a clinic to do nothing but treat with the ARPneuro. They've got 2 doctors. They've got 8 students. It's now part of their curriculum. And so now the 400 DCs that come out of, that graduate will be trained in this technology. So I think you're going to start seeing it a lot more prevalent in offices around the country. You can go to the next slide. So ARPneuro Therapy, what is it? So we've really got 2 devices. We've got an RX100, which is a class 2 medical device. And we've got about 56 clinics across the country. We're going to continue to have, we're going to continue to grow that list so that we have more ample opportunities for anybody that's on this call to go to hopefully a clinic less than an hour drive to and from, but we're going to continue to grow that. And then we've got the over-the-counter, the PRS, exact same technology. Really, the only difference is the RX100 can do 500 contractions per second, whereas the PRS, which is the over-the-counter and the one that Eric's going to be talking about, does a max of 245 contractions. And it's just, and I can't wait to hear some of the stories that Eric's going to share with everybody a little later. You can go to the next slide. So what is it? What is ARPneuro Therapy? Well, it's a neurological treatment. It helps alleviate pain. It helps prevent injury. It really accelerates the natural healing of the soft tissue. It helps increase range of motion. And really what it does is it helps re-educate some of the muscles and conditioning of muscles that may not be working properly. So you can go to the next slide, and Eric and Jake will talk in more length about that. But like I mentioned, it accelerates recovery, which is huge for anybody, myself included. I had a torn labrum, couldn't play tennis. And this technology, and I know there's some Dunes people on there, got me back on the tennis courts, and I was lucky enough to pick the best partner or the best player in the Dunes, a gentleman by the name of Dan, and we won the club championship. And it wasn't because of me. I'm going to attribute it to Dan, and more importantly, the ARPneuro Therapy. But it helps increase performance and strengthen muscles, and I'll let Jake and Eric talk about that a little bit later. You can go to the next slide. These are just some of the common conditions that this technology can help. Some of these words on here are so big I couldn't even begin to try to pronounce them. So like EDS is a great one that I can pronounce. I couldn't pronounce what it really is, but we're going to have a Q&A. We have a clinic in Austin, Texas that has become, that's become her go-to when in her clinic. She treats a lot of people with EDS, but as you can see, there's so many different conditions that this technology can help, whether it's the RX or PRS. bone on bone, and I'll let Jake talk a little bit about it. More importantly, one of the greatest features of the PRS is the ability to do blood flow of up to 245 contractions per second. So I think Jake's got a slide. He's going to talk about that in a little bit, but you can go to the next slide. So how does it work? It's a direct current electrical stimulation. So really what it does is it stimulates the soft tissues and muscles. It helps to increase the blood flow to that pain of origin. So typically what happens is if you have pain in your knee, for example, there's probably some muscles and some tissue that isn't functioning or firing like it's supposed to. So this neurological device actually fires back up those areas that have been dormant, if you will, and it helps re-educate that to start working, which will start doing what it's supposed to or intended to do, which is absorb the force so that the pain goes away, and then before long you're back doing your normal activities. So it's incredible. I had a friend of mine come in and stay with me for the weekend, had pain issue, and literally after one treatment of the PRS, he could not believe it. He was able to walk 18 holes of golf literally after just one treatment. So you find that you can have some immediate success. Typically it will take anywhere from 10 sessions, and Eric's probably going to talk in greater detail about that because he's been utilizing that with so many of his clients. You can go to the next slide, Jake. So a lot of people ask, well, is this like a TENS unit that I can get off the internet, or is this a TENS? It is completely different than a TENS. The TENS unit is an alternating current versus a direct current. A TENS unit is surface versus this is more, it's a deeper, gets to the cellular level, and the contractions, as I mentioned, can go as high as 245 contractions per second. Jake educated me with this, and if you're lifting weights, your muscles are contracting at 2 times per second. So it gives you an idea of how powerful the tool is and what it does, what it's doing to kind of retrain some of those muscles and tissues. You can go to the next slide. So what we've done, and this really came out of the discussions with Logan and the VP of Innovation and Technology, when they evaluated this, they could not believe the outcomes. And he said, you just can't argue with these outcomes. And so what we're doing is we're starting to ask clients to put a simple 5-minute video. We send them a link. If you are a client and have had success, we'd love to get you to do a testimonial so that it helps other people that may have a knee issue or hip issue to learn or hear from others that have gone through that. Very similar to what we're doing on the professional athlete side, but we like to call that the weekend warrior side of the outcomes. You can go to the next slide, Jake. So this device, it's good for safe for all ages, high school athletes, college athletes, weekend warriors. There are some conditions that it can't be used if someone's pregnant, if anyone has an electrical device like a pacemaker. If you have known cancer, you should talk to your doctor first, or a recent history of blood clots. You can go to the next slide. Now, this has gotten way over my head. So obviously this is a good transition to somebody that can actually read and write. And I'm going to turn that over now to Jake. So go ahead, Jake.
Thanks, Matt. Maybe you can't read or write, but you are Snoop Dogg, so you can certainly rap.
That's great. Well, before I go, I'm not the rapper. Eric shared with us that he's in a band. So hopefully if we've got some time, he'll sing a song at the end of this session. He may not make you cry.
Thanks, Matt.
He may not make you cry with your stories, but I hope you're not making anybody cry with your voice.
That's Snoop Dogg with a triple G, by the way.
I love it.
All right, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
Jake.
Yeah.
I forgot to. If anybody has any questions throughout the presentation, please jot them down, and I will ask either Eric or Jake. So don't be shy if you have a question as we're going through this presentation.
Yes, feel free. And you might have some when we get to this. We've, the last few times we've done this, we have alluded a little bit, one, to the waveform, and I'm going to touch on this very briefly, and then going into the main pulse suspend button on the PRS device, which is what we consider background mode or blood flow. So the waveform, very similar to a direct current wave. or very similar to the way your brain contracts a muscle. Now, these two particular waves that I have on there is a DC wave, and on the bottom is a DC RC wave. So here's the reason why that's important. So your brain does contract a muscle on a direct current wave. However, that top point on direct current RC wave that you can see here in the top left corner is very similar to the very bottom one, which is the way our brain contracts a muscle. So to give you an idea of how this technology is very similar to the way our brain works, this gives you that good idea. So Matt was talking about the major difference between us and any type of TENS unit or any other electrical stim unit out there that's on an RC or an AC current. This is one of those game changers where we truly are working neurologically and it's harmonious with the body. This is one of the major reasons we're also able to get to that cellular level and have the results that we do. So blood flow, very simply, a lot of times people, I think, underrate what this technology can do with blood flow. And in this particular case, I want you to just think of blood flow as like your highway system. It enables the flow of blood and oxygen throughout your body, and it ensures proper organ function and delivery of nutrients to all your systems in your body. So that means it's going to help wounds heal faster. If you're an extreme athlete and you like to work out, it's going to help recovery time a lot faster. It increases brain activity. If you ever heard that idea of just jump around for 5 minutes, if you're feeling down and depressed, jumping around and getting blood flow moving in your body is going to help spark that hippocampus, and you start to get new ideas and new thoughts, a little less depressed. Blood flow helps do that as well. And also at the end, it keeps your heart healthy because, again, it's giving nutrients into all the systems of your body. So why is that important to the PRS? Well, this is the major reason. Okay, so if you talk about the contractions, and Matt did, with the contractions that we consider that our primary wave. With that primary wave, you get the muscle contractions as well as blood flow. So like you said, you're working out, you're pumping 2 times per second, but now you have this device that's assisting you at 245 times per second. So you're getting that increased blood flow, but you're also getting those contractions, which could create a delayed onset muscle soreness, or otherwise known as DOMS. This is where the main pulse suspend really has a power to it. And a lot of times I think people just focus on the contractions, but that main pulse suspend, we consider that our secondary wave, more of a passive setting. And 95% of the time you won't feel it unless you're on a very sensitive area. So if you have knee pain or you have shoulder pain, low back pain, these are pads, these are areas where you can place the pads, literally turn this on all day under main pulse suspend, and just generate blood flow into that area. So even for people who don't want the muscle contractions going on in their body, you're still increasing blood flow and, of course, increasing or speeding up that recovery time. And that's a major reason as to why the PRS has so much power to it. This science kind of goes into a lot of detail. Matt also talked about this, and we're going to have Dr. DeBono on next Thursday. And he's done a lot with our science. He's done a lot when it comes to, what the DC RC current is and how it works with our body. But he also has gone a lot in detail about blood flow and the benefits of what this device can do with blood flow. So if you're asking yourself, if you don't have a PRS and you're not quite sure what the benefits would be, I would tell you this: even without the contractions, something like blood flow is going to improve your healing process. It's going to improve your recovery time. Let's say you're an athlete and you have a particular sport, and after that sport or after that practice, after that event, you can just place the pads around those areas that are sore or around the areas that are worked. So if you're a golfer, you can place on low back. If you're in tennis, knees or ankles, and just run that blood flow mode, watch television or even go to sleep, and now you're generating and lubricating those joints for a 6 to 8 hour period. And it's significantly going to increase your improvement. It's significantly going to increase your recovery time. And of course, if you're an athlete, your performance is going to bounce back a lot quicker, and it's going to make you more competitive in your sport. So keep that in mind on blood flow. I'm sure the questions will come in, but very simply, if you have a PRS, it's that main pulse suspend button. I recommend you use it every day. I literally sleep with it 5 to 6 times a day in the recent. I sleep with it on my hip. I've dealt with hip issues in the past. Since I've been doing that, along with ARP treatments, I have actually been running, which I haven't done. People who have known me in the past, I haven't run for over a year. And in the last 4 months, I've been running, pretty consistently. So it definitely works.
Jake, is that running because I've challenged you in triathlon, or is there something else that's motivating you?
That's certainly one of the reasons. And it's also one of the main reasons I started going to blood flow. I figured I have to raise my game. I'm not going to let Snoop Dogg over there beat me in this triathlon he challenged me to in Chicago. That's in August. So you got me on video saying it, but yes, that's part of it.
I love it. It's interesting, Jake, on that blood flow feature, we're getting orders for the PRS quite frequently. And it's interesting because a lot of them are professional athletes that are using the PRS for the blood flow when they're traveling. Some of the trainers, especially one of the trainers I was talking with from the Dodgers, said these guys are eating up the PRS because they want to be, it's so easy to travel with, especially just on the blood flow, Joe. I wanted to bring that up.
That's it. I appreciate it. That's a great point. I used to travel with it all the time, especially in the plane. I would put it on my back. We sold it to a few truck drivers that would do the same thing. They would drive with it on blood flow or really light sensation. When they're in the truck, 8, 10, 12 hours in the truck, it's certainly gonna help out. So I believe before we move to the next one, we have a few questions here. And the first one is restless leg and Parkinson's. Does it help with that? So let me focus on restless leg. We have treated several patients when it comes to that, and there have been benefits with restless leg syndrome, and just getting muscle contractions and blood flow into that area. It does help. Parkinson's, a little bit trickier, but you're still going to see some benefit. It's a better way of life. Again, you're getting the muscles contracting and you're getting blood flow into that area. Neurologically, it's going to help stimulate things. It slows down the process of what Parkinson's can do. Again, we don't have a lot of great protocols specifically for Parkinson's, but we have had a lot of patients that have been treated that have Parkinson's on our device, whether it's the RX or they use the PRS just at home in a take home just for therapy reasons. They've seen some benefits. So to answer your question, yes, on both. One doesn't necessarily cure it, but it's going to give you a better way of life for sure. Those of you who want to check it out, some of the just the science portion, it's ARPneuro.com. Go to the About section and then drop down to science. That'll give you a little bit more detail of the RC current on the direct current wave. And eventually we'll have some things on there about blood flow as well. But without further ado, I don't want to waste any more time on that. Let me introduce you to our guest. He's our honored guest. He's a master trainer. His name is Eric Eccles, and he's a health and fitness professional with over 29 years of experience managing clubs, training clients, and educating people of all ages about fitness and wellness. And he is a trainer, massage therapist, coach, and author. He has worked with a wide range of clients, including professional athletes, senior citizens, and amputees. Eric has recently started using the ARPneuro PRS to help his clients reduce pain, accelerate recovery, and strengthen muscles. Eric is also the author of A Lifestyle Worth Living and the creator of the Mindful Life Academy, which is a 200-hour yoga instructor school accredited through Yoga Alliance. He has taught several educational workshops on topics such as nutrition, balance and posture, meditation, and yoga. So everyone, please give your undivided attention to our guest, Mr. Eric Eccles. Eric, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jake.
What an intro. Wow.
I know. Wow.
I've known you this long. I didn't know you were that smart.
Not me either.
No, that's good. What a great bio. Incredible. Good job,
Thank
Jake.
you so much.
So Eric, right away, how did you hear about the ARPneuro Therapy?
Well, actually, Matt introduced me to it. I work at a facility in Southwest Florida called the Dunes of Naples, and which we deal with a lot of tennis players. It's a tennis facility. And I got hooked up with Mr. Dell right there, and he showed me how it worked and introduced me to just the ARP device itself. and the rest is pretty much history. I've been using it since that day, pretty much every day that I work.
Wow. Can you go into detail of how you've been like recently incorporating it into your clients' fitness programs?
I would love to.
Awesome.
I've worked with so many different people just in the past few months, from people that are dealing with neuropathy. I've got people that are post-op knee surgery, hip surgery, shoulder surgery, people that are dealing with major issues with lower back problems. Recently, I had a young lady that had a hamstring tear, and it locked her up pretty good to where she couldn't move. What was so fascinating about it was how fast the recovery was for her, and how we actually had her going through the movement that she actually went through when she hurt herself, when she actually hurt her hamstring, in order to make the corrections, so that now she is out playing tennis like a beast.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal just to watch how much she's improved, how fast.
So let me unpack that one a
Jake,
little
let me
bit.
jump in if I
Yeah,
could
go ahead.
for a second. I think, and Jake, you can attest to this, but this technology is about movement, right? This is not, and I'd love you to share to the listeners today, Jake, you know, this is not this is all about the movements, and this PRS is so adapt for that movement. So I'd love you to touch upon that a little bit, Jake and Eric.
Well, I've got clients that all use the device while we're training, and put it on the passive current so that they can just continue. And this thing is completely maxed out. They really don't feel anything, but they're getting this massive amount of circulation going through their body. But what I've noticed at the same time, in those areas where they actually had the issues, while we're training with the ARP device on, there is absolutely no pain, no discomfort. Their form is better, right? Their technique is near perfect. And they walk away from it like, what just happened? You know, I should have been in major pain. So, I mean, that's just one small example of how this technology is really working for people. It's pretty amazing.
So Eric, when you mentioned that when they're going through movements that their form was better, did you notice that when they were on the blood flow feature?
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
very interesting. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think they're getting that massive amount of circulation at that time, you know, and that contraction is sustained in the muscle. So I think what's going on is it's rerouting everything and just allowing the body to work the way it should. The nervous system and the muscles to actually realign and work the way they should while it's healing at the same time.
And you mentioned with movement, and I agree with Matt. I mean, it is all about the outcomes, and the outcomes are certainly better when you do this therapy with movement. Can you explain how you've been incorporating this, you know, within other like forms in fitness? Like, have you been doing other like modalities with it? Any forms of exercise you've been using with it?
Well, let me give you an example of how I actually use this with, I had mentioned a gentleman that had just had a botched knee replacement. We were trying to get him back to zero with his knee. It was nearly impossible because of the pain. You know, obviously we have to move him to get him back to zero. But once I started implementing the ARP device, it literally went within a week that we were actually able to get him to zero, because there was no pain for him while he was going through that movement, which is normally, if anyone's ever actually had a knee replacement, trying to get that knee back to zero is extremely painful for most people. But I mean, this was just an absolute shortcut. And then what we did after that is we actually started using it for therapy exercises. We would go through basic squats, you know, We were working when he actually left to go back up north this season. We were actually working on his hamstrings as well. But it's night and day recovery with a lot of these people. Now, I know there are some people it takes them a little bit longer, but it's rare that I'm seeing that. Now, I know that I'm new to this. I've only been using the ARP device for about 3 months now, but it has totally changed a lot of people's perspective on, and they think it's a TENS machine, but I explained to them that it's a direct current, that it literally goes all the way down to the cellular level. But it's just been phenomenal.
Your background in fitness, just in general, and health is really extensive. My question to you on this one have you been able to use it with anything beyond just like the workouts? Have you incorporated it with yoga or massage therapy, anything like that?
Yes, actually, Jake, interesting that you asked that. Yesterday, I had a client, a 90-minute deep tissue massage session. He was dealing with some major sciatic and low back issues. ARPed him up while we were going through the therapy. And then by the time we were done, he was $1 million.
Wow.
And it was a 90-minute session. That's it.
Wow.
That's fascinating. This was during the massage therapy session.
Yes. Yeah. While we were doing massage therapy.
When you say ARPed him up, did you have a specific pad placement or
Yeah. I actually had the pads on his laborums, which is the lower back muscles, along and then we actually went down to the sacrum.
Got it. Okay.
So we placed here and here, and pad placement is a big deal for this. That is one thing that I have really been studying. If you don't get the pad positioning correct, you might need to do it a few times before you do. Don't give up. You can do it. But I'm finding that there are people that have already came back to me that have one of these devices that need help with placement.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Can I jump in there too? And it's interesting you say that, Eric, because we have on our website, we're building a library of pad placements for the PRS and protocols. And so if somebody's utilizing this, we ask them to please email us for protocols so that we can continue to add to that library. So I just think it's important, and I'm glad to hear that you're been studying that. Speaking of pad placement, we've got a question. Does it matter where the pad replacement is, or can you put it on the area where the pain is?
For example, I have a young lady that has neuropathy. I'm placing them right on her feet.
Okay.
Literally both pads directly on her feet from the heel up. By the way, her neuropathy, she is actually starting to get feeling back in her feet.
Yeah.
Now, the feeling that she's getting sometimes, she's like, okay, it's like I can feel my feet again. I'm getting certain little pains here that it was completely numb. I could feel nothing for years. So what's fascinating is that now she's literally starting to feel her feet again.
Yeah. We've had several cases when it comes to that in regards to neuropathy. I mean, I've literally seen people, and I know I'm not alone when I say this, I've seen people go to tears because, they go through a foot bath or, they do some sort of therapy, and it's the first time they felt their feet in 10 years. And I want to touch on the last one just briefly, because there are a couple of other things that you can do. Certainly pad placement does matter. You want to hit those hot spots, but something with the PRS, if you want to do a 2-lead system, and let's just say you have shoulder pain, you can just sandwich the area, or low back. I always say black above, red below, and you can surround that pain area and still get some relief. Now, it's not necessarily going to wake up those hot spots, but it will get blood flow into that area, and it'll stimulate that area where a lot of times they do have results. So the right pad placement is definitely going to make a difference, but those are 2 ways you can actually handle that.
Jake, we do have a question, and it's perfect timing. you know, if you put those pads in the wrong area, right? I mean, you know, how will it affect you, and how does it affect, you know, how would it affect the
So
pad?
it's not going to hurt you. You can place the pads just about everywhere and probably get some sort of blood flow and stimulation results. The problem is if it's not in the right area, it's just not going to work as well. That's one of the reasons we do really try to focus on where to place the pads properly so you can get that relief quicker. A lot of times you can literally treat yourself improperly, but still get some results because you're getting blood flow, you're getting stimulation, and it's intense enough where it can still clear out hot spots and open up areas, even if it's not on that location. But, you know, to Eric's point, he's correct. Finding those right placements is going to give you those better results for sure.
Now, another example, I was using it and testing it with a friend of mine that has arthritis in his hands. Obviously, I didn't put the pads, the electrodes right on his hands. I put them on his flexors, extensors. Now, if you do this and you get a little too close, it's going to make your hands contract.
Yeah.
Right. Have you seen? I'm sure you've seen it a million times, Jake.
Yeah.
But again, could be correct placement as well.
For sure.
Arthritis in the hands. I'm seeing results with this as well.
It's you mentioned you've only been doing this for 3 months, so I think you're the perfect one to ask this next one. From what you know now and what you didn't know before and how you've learned in the process of 3 months, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you think that you may have had or that others may be coming in, some of your clients had regarding the ARPneuro technology?
Absolutely. The first misconception, I'll tell you, I have a feeling that the majority of people that are using this technology will say this. First misconception, they think it's a TENS machine.
Yeah, for sure.
They think it's a TENS machine. And so when you actually look at it in comparison, a TENS machine only hits, it's an alternate current, right? So it only hits about, I think 35% of superficial muscle.
It's probably, yeah, probably around that. Yeah. It's not getting cellular level for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not going all the way through. So, but I think that that's a big misconception that most people think. This is like, I don't know, I would call it, well, it's definitely not a TENS because it has the alternate current versus the direct current that we use. I think it's a lot more powerful.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
I really, really think that I'm just getting started with this.
Yeah.
In another 6 months, I cannot even imagine what I'm going to learn.
Yeah. It's interesting though, just in a 3-month period on how much you already have learned and know in regards to technology, because it's true. This is a machine that contracts in a way that you're not going to see anywhere else. There's just no other technology that has this type of, intense power. At the same time, you mentioned the TENS unit. Most of them that you're going to find over the counter is just skin deep. It's probably no different than me flicking, the bottom of my arm and getting blood flow that way. I mean, the moment you take off the pads, it's over with. Whereas the PRS definitely does have its repairability factor where you're truly fixing the problem as opposed to just treating the symptom.
Exactly.
Which is all the TENS unit does.
Yeah, Jake, we have another question that came in. Can the PRS device be used for enhancing extreme, slow, eccentric training?
Yes, of course. And
you
know what? That's a great question. I mean, Eric, how have you used it for that? And have you used it for eccentric training?
I've actually used it to, I've had people on a progressive resistance training program and basically used it for the whole exercise regimen.
Wow.
We changed the pads when we went from lower extremities to upper. So
I'm going to kind of jump in on this one because I've probably worked out with it for 4.5 years now. If you just look at any Instagram videos these days, a lot of athletes, they'll do even crazier things that never used to be posted before, and now they are. I've seen it train for fast twitch. I've seen it train for slow twitch. I've seen it train. I mean, I've done it with balance, and you'll see some videos when it comes to that where it's working on stability muscles and you're still contracting that muscle. The beauty of this is, even though it's contracting, you're able to open up to an eccentric movement, and that's a difference maker. Whereas a TENS unit or any type of alternating current, it'll contract. If you force it open, it might be able to stay open, but you're not going to be able to keep it open and go through that wide range that you could with the ARPneuro technology.
But I would think honestly, knowing the body, an eccentric contraction, anything to where you're actually slowing down the movement, and then you've got 245 contractions within that long eccentric contraction, you're going to get results. I mean, there's no way out of it. You're going to get results.
So Jake, because I'm definitely probably the dumbest person on this podcast for
100%.
Sure, okay, including all our listeners. Could you dumb that down a little bit for me? What is that? What does that question even mean? Could you explain that to me, please?
You want me to do
so
it?
Think
Jake?
about when go ahead, Eric.
So an eccentric contraction is an extension of the muscle. Concentric is shortening.
Okay.
So when we actually do an isotonic contraction, was what we use when we use dumbbells or free weights or pulley systems. When we shorten the muscle, that's concentric, right? When we extend it, that's an eccentric contraction.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That
Makes it simple.
Okay.
And one of the things that kind of Eric sort of touched on is a lot of times you're getting that major building point when you slow it down, that eccentric movement where you slow it down, we call it a negative.
That's what we call the negative. Yep.
Yep. And you're still getting, like Eric mentioned, 245 times a second of contraction while you're going down to that negative movement. So that's where it's like you cannot avoid getting results. You're certainly going to see the results in that movement.
Well, I have to ask this question then, because I love how Jake says that 245 contractions per second. I'd love to ask this, Eric, because I'm a pretty tough guy, I think. There's no way I'm maxing out that PRS yet. So, I mean, have you had anybody, other than probably the neuropathy of the feet, has anybody been able to max out the PRS in your 3 months?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
It's not easy to do, for sure.
No, it's not. And I've been testing it on myself. Jake, you mentioned that you got a hip issue.
Yes.
Me too. I've been testing it. What's fascinating though is I don't have the pain anymore.
Right.
I just don't have the pain that I had in my left hip.
Correct.
It's gone.
Yeah, yours is the left, mine's the right. We can. Mine is getting better though. I have been running on it, so I have to say, I'm delighted on the results I've been getting, between the PRS and the RX, and definitely I started sleeping with it. And Matt was a motivator to that because I knew I had to raise the game if I'm going to beat him in this triathlon.
Yeah,
You know that Matt actually gets out on the tennis court and has it on in between his sets.
Does he really?
Sure. Oh yeah. Especially during the club championship. I mean, we almost lost in the semis, no doubt. And I was like, oh wow, because I'm still coming back from my labrum. I still have a torn, and I put that on, and I'm not kidding you. It was instant, because we had about an hour and a half between matches, and without it, I don't know if I would have been able to serve. And I'm not kidding. And I felt so good in the finals, and without that, there's no way. So as soon as that match was over, I stuck away, put that PRS on, I put the contractions for probably 20 minutes, and then I did pure blood flow, and I felt like I didn't play the first match because it was all in one day. So it was fantastic. So I can attest to that.
I love it.
And they started saying we were cheating. That's the problem. The guys that lost, they were saying that we cheated. And I said, hey, you can go to Eric and get treated, just as much as I can. So next year they'll know.
Definitely not cheating.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So Eric, what advice would you give to other fitness owners out there, other massage therapists, or just clients out there that are looking into this technology? What would you say after your 3 months of experience using this?
Well, I've been doing this forever and a day, it seems like. Been in this industry for a long time. I have acquired several, probably close to 40 different modalities over the years. This is something new. This is something that, professional athletes are using this as a shortcut to jump back in the field, in the game. And we're just now getting this technology as, lay people, as citizens.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is gonna change the way recreational sports are played in the near future. I think it's going to change a lot of things for a lot of people.
For sure. And how would you see that? So how so?
Well, I mean, whether you're a retired individual living down here in Southwest Florida, that's like we were talking, a weekend warrior, or if you're a young athlete in high school or college, this is going to be something that will be the norm. I'm telling you, in the next 10 years, this will be the norm just because it works.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to sit here and disagree with you on that. I'm a firm believer that everybody should have one of these in their home throughout the nation, throughout the world, because it has a benefit in some place in your life for sure. So I don't disagree with that. I definitely see it in the future, not just with fitness, but just, in general, like you were saying. Where do you see your business in the future work around this technology? Are you deciding to make changes as a result of it? Have you changed your training style because of it? Like how is it kind of affecting you in the last 3 months?
I am changing my training style, definitely because of this, and the therapy work as well, because I've realized that I can actually help my clientele much faster than I could in the past.
Interesting.
So every opportunity that I get to place the ARP device on these people, I do it.
100%.
I do it because I know that it's going to help them in the long run.
Yeah.
And some of these people, let me give you a quick example. I had a gentleman that came to me. I've been working with him this past season, double hip replacement. He was so locked up, he could hardly move, wanted to play golf, great golfer. But I mean, he couldn't even do lift his hip, do an external rotation. The next day after I gave him this treatment, this guy went out and played the best game of golf he ever played. And he came back to me like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
So he was sold on it. Yeah. And now I think he's actually on vacation somewhere on the other side of the world. But I mean, he is so much better because of this device.
Nice.
Yeah,
I mean, and he's religious about it.
I love it.
I've got a similar story. I was coming off of 18 and with a guy that I was playing with at where I play, and he was kind of complaining. He was apologetic because he didn't play well, and he said he's had some serious. Jake, you probably know it was shoulder issues with Chili.
Shoulder for sure.
Shoulder.
Yeah. Posterior.
And he could not. He went everywhere, and so I literally, because we opened up a clinic with the RX in Naples, and I basically took him under my wing and said, hey, come on, and I'm going to get you treated. And he went in and I went in with him for the first treatment. And literally about the fourth treatment, I'm sitting around, having a cocktail with some other guys. And he walked in and I told this to Jake, and he walked in, he looks over at me. He came over with the biggest smile on his face. And he says, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but I feel like I need to give you a kiss. Now he says this in front of 15 other, members. So I just kind of laughed and I said, slow down, partner. But, he is now, he said he couldn't believe finally the pain was gone. He was able to sleep through the night and he's able to swing a golf club, and it changed his life. So I've seen that firsthand as well. And it's such a cool feeling. And I got it, for you, Eric, that feeling to see your client get that happy has to just be, almost spiritual.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's why I do it.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, awesome. Well, are there any other questions from anybody that's online? We've got about 5 more minutes before we wrap it up, before Eric sings a song. So if anybody wants to hear, I mean, are you going to take requests, Eric? Or yeah. So
Shut up, Matt.
I want to hear it. Go.
One quick question, just before, since we're closing up, how can our viewers, listeners, how can they connect with you and to purchase your book? Or if they're in the area, if you're in the Naples area, how can they be a client of yours?
I actually work privately with people right now. If they want to contact me, they would have to do it privately through a referral.
Got it.
I'm so busy.
That's
down
a good
here
problem
in Southwest
to have.
Florida. It is a good problem to have, and I'm not complaining.
Yeah, 100%. What about your book? I mean, is that something they can get on Amazon, or is it?
Yeah, you can buy it anywhere. It's called A Lifestyle Worth Living. I actually wrote that book about 10 years ago.
Nice.
It has all mind, body, spirit principles in it, from a strength training regimen to a yoga regimen to a meditation regimen. And then, of course, at the end, I kind of get on my soapbox and talk a little bit about what I see as far as the future of, your health.
I love it. Yeah, fantastic. So once again, it's called Lifestyle Worth Living.
Yeah, and I use a pen name there. I use a pen name called CA Human, which stands for Consciously Aware Human Being, which is what we're all striving to be.
Yeah, I love it. That works.
Hey, Jake, we have a question that came in with a lot of big words. So would you mind taking this one?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions in here that I've seen. Let's see. If you have a good pad placement for trochanteric bursitis, I would love to hear it. I don't want to strengthen the wrong muscles. First off, that's a great question. Before I get to the next one, that's actually what I was dealing with for the past several months. That was part of my hip issues. I have seen a lot of results going to glute med and TFL, or hip flexor area. So
Yep.
That's a great location to go. I've done some others, gracilis, which is the inside part of your thigh, and IT band, which is the outside, so you can almost just sandwich it close to your hip. But my favorite, and the one I still use today, is glute med right side, the outside of your butt cheek, and then right over by your hip flexor area. Those are the two pad placements that I've seen a lot of benefit, strengthening those muscles, kind of like helping. A lot of the movements I've done, those are the pad placements I still use today.
Real quick, Jake, are you doing long placement on those areas, or are you doing horizontal?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Yeah, so with glute med, I'm actually going vertical. And then with the hip flexor area, I actually go on the angle of where the muscle is at. So I'm kind of horizontal for the most part, but yeah, on a certain angle. Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a few more that kind of jumped in here. Is the ARP covered by insurance? Well, in some cases it is. It's not covered by Medicare or Medicaid, unfortunately. But yes, there are certain insurance that you have. There are coverages. So you're just gonna have to look in the local area. It depends on where you're at. It also depends on your insurance. Yeah,
well, one thing I'd jump in on that too. I think every state's a little different on the insurance, and every clinic is a little different across the country. So, I would first find out what state you're in, but then second, the PRS is actually covered under your is it HSA?
HSA, yep.
HSA. So we get a lot of orders at the end of a calendar year for people that want to take advantage of the benefits of the PRS through their HSA spending account. So, that is a unique way to purchase it as well. And there's another question here, Jake. Do you see that?
Is there an EU version available? You'll have to forgive me. Is that European Union version? I'm not sure how to answer that. We have sold out of country, but yes. I don't think that's the question.
They said European, so you're on. I was excited, JW, whoever JW is, because I thought we finally stumped Jake, and I was going to be excited to hear him stump, but I guess you didn't. It didn't work.
There is European version. Basically it's it's our device, and then you would just use your extensions to plug it in when you need to charge it. But for the most part, it's battery operated, so you don't have to carry it around and lug it around and plug it in. That's the beauty of it. It's even our larger device is very mobile.
Awesome. Well, guys, Eric, Jake, first of all, now that I'm back up in Chicago, our first one was at 8 o'clock at night, and my bedtime's at 9. I'm like the midnight, it's midnight at 9 o'clock in Naples, as you know, Eric.
Pretty much.
And so now I feel like, gosh, I got a whole hour, left, but I don't want to, we've got just a couple minutes to wrap it up. So, I mean, we haven't gotten one request on a song. But Jake, do you have any songs you want Eric to sing for us?
I'm not going to put him on the spot. I think he's been doing really well with that. But I would definitely love to check out his band online if he doesn't mind sharing that.
Sure. EricBartonBand.com.
Eric Barton.
By the way, that's my middle name.
I love it.
Barton.
And Eric, what genre is that? I know you kind of mentioned it when we were off camera, but would you mind telling the audience?
Oh man, we do weddings, corporate events, festivals, country clubs, you name it. And I can sing everything from classic rock to modern rock to country to crooner music. I mean, I can give you a little Michael Bublé if you want.
Oh,
A lot of good flavors there.
Yeah.
That's what all the people say.
Oh, wow. You are
You got
good.
a piece of
Eric,
it, Matt. You got
that's
something
impressive, Eric. Rock star. I love it. Well,
You're the
good.
rock
Jake,
star, Matt's the rapper.
Exactly. Snoop Dogg it is. Good stuff.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thanks for being a part of this technology. We're going to learn a lot from you as you're learning from this. So we appreciate you sharing those stories. Hopefully you'd be willing to come back down in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to doing that because, like I said, just scratching the surface with this device.
Awesome.
I love it. I can't wait to see what you can do in the future and how you change some things as well.